Right. So, Vivek, you can share your screen now. Great. So once again, very warm welcome to all of you. Today we have a very interesting session lined up for you. And we have with us Vivek Bhargava, who is the CEO of iProspect Communicate 2. I don't think there would be anyone among you who don't know him or do not know iProspect Communicate 2. So the topic of today's session is approach to brand building through digital. I still remember a few years back, if I'm having a discussion with marketing folks and if the discussion is about brand building, they would talk about including or think about digital also while thinking about brand building. But these days, if you're talking about brand building, you need to think through digital. So that's the change I think that has come up. So today we will be actually discussing various techniques that has evolved in this new approach towards brand building. So that's it from my side. Over to you, Vivek. You can start the session now.
Thanks, yeah. Welcome, friends. I'll try to, I have about 50-60 slides, which I'm going to wrap up in 30-35 minutes. So I'll skip some of the slides. It is intentional, so don't worry about it. I'll just be covering some few key points in the slide and moving on. So moving forward, if you take, I'll give a quick background on us. So we're about 160 people. Now 16 years I've been doing digital. Per se, we've always focused on the enterprise space. Some of the partners we work with are listed below. So predominantly the financial space, a lot in the travel space, but it's always been about ROI. So one of the questions that have been asked to me all my years in digital, which is 16 years, is that can brand communication, brand building be done through digital? And this is one question that, if you ask me, digital did not have an answer for it up to about 5 to 6 years back. In the last 5-6 years, something has changed, and now digital has become a very effective advertising platform. So I'll just give a background on it and why the approach for building brands on the internet has to be very different than the mediums that the CMOs are used to using from a conventional sense of the word. So the key is that when you look at digital, one should not look at digital from digital measurements point of view. So a lot of times I've seen partners that work with clients, they say that, okay, I'll give you so many likes, I'll give you so many million video views, etc. And then what happens is the management or the board of directors will ask the CMO, yes, you got 20 million likes on Facebook, but so what? Or you got 50 million YouTube views, so what? So I think the key for digital guys is to understand that the measurement of the organization is in the offline world, the business objectives are offline. So it's very important to map the digital platforms to that offline world and say, okay, can search help in customer acquisition? Can social media platforms used for cross-selling and upselling? Can you understand consumer trends through social media listening? So unless you map the right digital platform to the right business objective, you'll always struggle in convincing the board to allocate more money towards digital. So this is how we think digital, this is how digital should be thought. Why digital strategy is essential, I think we all know. There are 150 million users becoming 450 million users over the next 3 years. Today, I think if you take the disposable income of the country, a lot of internet users control majority of the disposable income of the country. I think it's very, very important to understand that digital is sort of a filter in India. So a few more stats which are astounding. Out of a billion people we have, only 32 million people have PAN cards. Okay, so that means, just imagine, out of a billion people, 3% of the population has PAN cards. The only 2 million cars sold in the year per se, including nano cars. Only 1 million people in India have a declared income of more than 10 lakh rupees annually. So 10 lakh rupees a year. I think most of you in your lifetime will guaranteed earn more than 10 lakh rupees a year. So every one person attending this webinar today is going to be only 0.1% of the entire population that's going to attend the webinar. So 10 lakh rupees is not a lot of money, but only 1 million people have declared income of 10 lakhs and above. So digital per se in India is sort of a filter. It sort of tells you this is the audience which has probably the largest disposable income, and they are the ones who can spend money on digital or on any kind of a disposable income. Now the key for understanding brand building approach in digital is to understand how digital plays two roles. The first role that digital plays is it's an advertising platform. It is like television, it's like outdoor, it's like print. The job of an advertising platform is to create the awareness, interest, desire, and also action. Now the thing is that digital is one step beyond the awareness, interest, and desire. It allows facilitation of action right on the medium itself. So that's where e-commerce comes in. But a lot of brands, a lot of times we confuse between advertising platform and e-commerce platform, and we say that, okay, if e-commerce has not happened, That means advertising must have not happened. The fact of the matter is that measuring awareness and desire in any platform, whether digital or not, is very difficult because I never know whether I've created the intention to purchase or not. So it's important that digital should be treated like an advertising platform and also like an e-commerce platform. Both are distinct entities and each must be treated as such. As soon as you try to measure the e-commerce and they say that based on which will judge the efficacy of internet as an advertising platform, then you're going to have trouble. So again, these are some stats. E-commerce was taken over by IRCTC and travel was almost 87% of total e-commerce revenues. It's going to become 49%. So a lot of other things are going to grow. It's going to become these figures in the next few years. So before we start off on the brand building bit of it, let me focus on a little bit on the summary of how digital must be approached and why then that changes the change on the brand building aspect of it. So I think digital is not about creating a perfect blueprint what needs to be done before you take your first step. Digital is about taking a compass in your hand and you start your journey. Until you start your journey, you won't know what problems you're going to face. Secondly is that unlike conventional media, where you put a lot of your budgets towards media, so let's say the creative companies are paid 1.5%, 2%, the media agency are paid 1.5%, 2%, rest 96% goes to publisher. In digital, there are a lot of things to be done, so paid media should be only 65% of your budget. The 35% that you spend on other things will help you increase the efficacy of the 65%. I'll come to that on it a little bit more in detail when we go to the actual presentation. Digital is about testing small things. So the cost of failure in the offline world is very high. Digital cost of failure is hardly any. So digital is about firing a bullet, calibrating it. When it hits the target, then you throw the cannonball. If you throw the cannonball without firing a bullet, then you could go wrong and you could go wrong big. So in conventional media, there is no way to fire a bullet. That's the reason you have to always throw a cannonball. And one wrong marketing campaign can sort of erode a lot of shareholder value. Here you can fire bullets and then only if they hit the target, throw the cannonball. The other thing is that when you work with a partner as an agency or whoever, he has to work like a Sherpa. He has to walk with you through the entire journey. Unlike conventional, a world where a McKinsey or a Bain could give you a strategy blueprint of what you should do, that doesn't work in digital. Digital one has to work together and has to walk with you through the entire journey. So that approach has to be very different in digital. I think it's important to look at digital from a device agnostic point of view. So it could be a mobile screen, it could be a tablet, it could be a television, it could be any other device that may come up tomorrow, holographic images. So digital as a whole, when you're thinking of digital strategy, you've got to consider everything that comes in the digital realm of things, not because it's connected to the internet in some cases. Right? So digital is going to be a strategy which will involve every single place you can imagine. So I was talking to somebody called Nikesh Arora from Google, who's a very, very big guy in Google. He was saying that they look at mobile strategy, they don't look at per se a mobile device. They look at the 63 screens that most of the households have today, which could be a microwave or could be a screen of a fridge. I think the key, so I've worked with hundreds of organizations over the last 16 years. One thing that has differentiated one organization from the other is the digital fitness of the organization. Because what happens is that we are no longer living in a world where digital marketing is important. We're living in a world where I would say it's a digital age. So what happens is that today if you see a 2-year-old, it tries, the 2-year-old tries swiping a book or swiping a TV and expecting it to work like an iPad. We are living in a world where when I say music, it means MP3. When I say photographs, it means digital photographs. So it's no longer about digital marketing. It's the age we're living in. So it's very important that every single organization, every single department of the organization must be digitally fit. And digital has to get in the DNA of the organization. So more and more investments organizations make to understand digital, the more they will leverage digital across the entire organization rather than just limiting it to the marketing team or the digital marketing team of the company. I think the multilingual has not been a big thing in India as yet, but I think in the next 3 years, languages in multilingual is going to play a very, very critical role in India, because if you take there are about 120, 150 million internet users today, they could become 400 million users in the next 3 years. So the next 250 million users probably will not know English. I am 100% sure that 400 million people in India don't know English. So if you just take the circulation of regional language papers like Hindi, Dainik Jagran, any of these papers, it's at least 4 times more than Times of India in any case. We know that the consumption of content, even if you take news as a surrogate, it's 4 times more than English language. So I think the digital is going to move where language is going to play a very, very critical role in the world of tomorrow. Also, the thing is that digital has the time to go physical. So what happens is earlier nobody would carry the TV sets with them where they went. Today there are a lot of things happening. So this is a very axe thing where a screen is there and axe angels fall to a certain location, and you could take photographs with the angel per se. So the angel is virtual, but you feel the angel is next to you. So there are going to be times where you're going to have a concert, you're going to have an IPL match where the phones will become a voting machine, the phones will allow to select the winners. We are now carrying a device with us almost 24 hours a day. There are a lot of marketing opportunities opening up where it takes digital into physical into the digital world. And organizations that actually use both of them are the ones who will communicate and engage with the consumers far more effectively than organizations who depend on just the digital sense of the world. Digital, as I said, is a catalyst across the entire organization. So digital can help in customer acquisition, brand building, understanding consumer trends. It is a multiplier for the entire organization. So it's important that not only the marketing function, the product function, the HR function, the function of understanding consumer trends, everyone has to tap into digital to understand how digital can be leveraged by the organization. Until digital gets into the DNA of the organization across the entire organization, people cannot leverage digital effectively. Moving forward, I think criticality of content creation is very, very critical. So the brand building approach that I'm going to share, content plays a very, very central spinal cord role in the entire approach. Because the thing is that if you take 3 pillars of digital, right? So one would say that organic search, paid media, and social media are the 3 pillars of digital. So what happens is content allows you to reduce your cost of paid media. So immediately paid media cost reduces if you have good content. If you take all of organic traffic comes to you only because of good content. Lastly, all the engagements that you get on social media also happen because of content. So if you take content as a multiplier across all the 3 pillars of digital, you cannot have a brand communication strategy without a strong content strategy. So in fact, if you ask me, digital strategy is all about content creation. It's a very, very critical component of it. You cannot have a digital strategy without having a content strategy. So now, if you keep all these things in mind, what has changed that the approach to brand building on digital has to change? Why can't we do the same thing we've done on television or print? Because when TV came on board, nobody said that, now we require a different approach. We probably require a different advertising unit, but we never required a different approach because it was still mass media, it was still many to one communication. It was always the same thing, right? So there was no approach change required. Digital has required an approach change. Let me just get into it, why the approach is required and what the approach should be. So the first thing is that if you take conventional media, right, it's all sold on rate cards. So the thing is that digital obviously is not sold through rate cards. Measurement out there is very, very limited. Lastly, conventional media cannot target intent. So if I want to buy a car and you want to show me a washing machine, then it's not going to work. But the thing is, digital allows you to target a lot of these things. What digital did was, digital allows you to target intent and context. It allows you to have an auction-based pricing. So a small guy does not have a disadvantage over a large guy, because everybody gets the same price. If you are Hindustan Lever or PNG, you get exactly the same price that a Ramu Halwai will get in Delhi, and there is no difference in the cost, right? So an auction-based mechanism. And you can measure sort of action. Now the thing is, if you take, right, when digital came up, Google AdWords came up, it seems to be the founders of Google, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, thought that, okay, what are the flaws in conventional media? We must remove those flaws. So the flaws were you could not measure it well, you could not target intent, and everything was sold through a rate card. So these 3 things like auction, intent targeting, and measurement was sort of faced in the early stages of digital. The problem is there are 3 clear deliverables that conventional media could give, which digital early days could not deliver. One was reach. Right, the number of users in internet were 20-30 million in India, so obviously could not deliver reach. You could not deliver frequency also, right? So if you take search, nobody searches the same keyword again and again. So frequency was difficult to deliver. Lastly, the duration of ad exposure was very limited. So a banner, is not an equivalent of a full-page print ad or a TV commercial. So duration of ad exposure was not there. What has happened in the last 5 years is that reach has come in, right? So 150 million internet users in India going to become 400 million in the next 3 years. So if you take the 32 million PAN card holders, so 150 million users is good enough. So the reach has already come in. The other thing what has happened is that a lot of technologies are coming in that delivers frequency now. So earlier, you couldn't deliver frequency, but now you have social media which allows you to deliver frequency. You have technologies like remarketing that allow you to deliver frequency. A lot of technology has come in by which I can track the user and sort of show him the same ad 4 to 5 times, 6 times before which he sort of creates an intention to purchase in him. Lastly, what happened was that YouTube to a certain extent has brought in that duration of multimedia unit. So now today YouTube delivers the same kind of sort of ad benefit that per se was earlier only possible through television. So today if you ask me, the three things that digital media lacked because of which brand building was not possible has come in. So digital always had the benefits of measurement, ability to target intent, and having that auction-based pricing. But the reach frequency and multimedia ad exposure has come in the last sort of 4 years, 5 years. So today it's reached a stage where you can actually have all the three things that the digital media have, plus all the three retaining all the three things that digital had earlier. So today digital has become a very effective brand building platform. But why is the approach that requires a change? So I think for that we need to understand how conventional media operates and how digital operates. First thing is, if you take conventional media, it's always been about minimizing waste. A good account planner minimizes the waste. That means it starts with that waste is going to be there. While digital is about maximizing efficiency. So you start with the core target audience, give you the best ROI, and then keep on expanding the universe until the time you reach that law of diminishing value utility where it stops giving you ROI. The other thing is that conventional media is rate card based, here is an auction model. So what happens is that the quality of content, quality of ad copy allows you to reduce your cost of advertising, which was never the case in the case of conventional media. So you come out with a very, very good TV ad. People may remember it, but Star TV will still charge you exactly the same price for a bad ad and a good ad, while digital benefits you if you have a good ad. The measurement is limited, so here what happens is optimization can be done on a day-to-day basis. So earlier I would define a TG in conventional media and give out the ad. The ad did not perform well, there is no way for me to optimize it. So digital allows you to test it with a larger set of audiences, and the audiences that perform better, you can actually focus on them. So basically if you take these factors, because of this the approach has to be different. Now what does the approach do and what are the tenets of the approach? So let me just come back to the tenets of the approach. The need of the approach is there and why the tenets of the approach should be. So first thing is that I think there is an end of the so-called the SEC A and B. So why was SEC A and B created? So what happened was, if I was a newspaper or I was a TV channel, I had to create and collate all the audiences to one location. Once I collate them into one location, then I can target them. So what happened was that, the only way to sell advertisers my TV channel was to, I say, okay, I have all these audiences with me, all of them are SECA. But the fact of the matter in digital, I don't need to collate everybody together. So one guy can be in Delhi, one guy can be in Timbuktu. As long as they have the same intent, I can target both of them. I can target them based on so many other factors where need for that sort of an SECA B is not there. So basically what digital does is allows me to target very specific people. So let's say we work with Loda, we work with Ustanji, etc. kind of builders. Now they want to target very, very niche audiences who can buy real estate. So what if I want to target all the people who pay taxes in India? There are only 32 million people. There are a lot of ways in which I could target them through digital. I want to target equity investors. I want to target CIOs being a certain age. I want to target business class travelers. I want to talk to and target people who take vacations with family outside of the country. Now I don't require to congregate all these audiences into one location. I can target them through various mechanisms, through interest, through intent, through a lot of other remarketing tools, especially targeting tools. So the thing is that SEC has become irrelevant. A lot of views that I actually get mention the SEC, but I think SEC is more relevant for conventional media, and digital, the SEC audience is not relevant. The other thing, the tenet is that digital does not have a effective ad unit. So let me put it this way, that if you take a full page print ad or a TV commercial, right, digital, barring a few mediums like YouTube, does not have a great ad unit. But digital does not charge for ad units. Digital charges for people who come to a destination. At the destination, I compete with the best conventional medium. So the destination level, I can have an app, I can have a mobile game, I can have a video, I can have interactivity, I can have a lot of things at destination. So I cannot compete with television and print on the ad unit. So I can compete with them in the destination. So the goal of the ad unit actually should be minimum advertising. The goal of the ad unit should be to get the people to the destination. Because you only charge when somebody clicks on it, then all the investments you're making, you don't need to communicate the brand message in the ad unit. So if the approach of brand communication is required, you should get people to the destination. That's where you communicate your brand message. Don't try to communicate that through the ad unit, because if you do it through the ad unit, it will not lead to effectiveness. So basically what happens is use the ad unit like hook, drive the traffic to the destination, communicate the benefits of your brand communication through the destination, and that interaction will lead to engagement and to sales. So the goal is move from advertising on ad units, but move to advertising on the destination. The other element of the approach is the content is the spinal cord of the approach. So content gives a multiplier to your paid media, reduces the cost of paid media, gives you organic traffic, and is the key influencer for the edge rank of Facebook and all social media interactions. So content should be, a certain amount of money should be invested in content creation. It's the spinal cord of the entire approach of brand building through digital. Content doesn't have to be limited to one thing. It can be mobile videos, it could be videos, it could be mobile apps, and the process should be very simple. If you identify a target audience who's going to sort of give you the best ROI, then you should find out what they're searching for on Google. So Google Traffic Estimator tells you what they're searching for. Based on that, you should create content. And the benefit to you would be that your paid cost will go down, you get organic traffic, and you get more engagement in social media. So content is a very, very critical part of the approach. One should start thinking about web presence instead of websites. So only 30% of users actually, go to websites. 70% of the users' time today is spent on non-websites, which could be YouTube, could be Twitter, could be Facebook, it could be mobile apps, it could be all these different things people do. So the thing is that people have to think, brands have to think in this manner, that I have to engage the consumer wherever he's consuming content. So the thing is, having a strategy where everybody should come to your website is passé. You have to focus on, so Wired Magazine came with an article which said, the web is dead, long live the internet. So the goal should be web presence, and web presence today means everything, right? It means a blog, means YouTube, means social media, means sharing sites, news aggregators. You have to be present where the consumer is. So your strategy for brand communication in digital must be web presence strategy rather than sort of website strategy. If you take measurement of the entire cycle is important. So if you ask me, digital or conventional media, both of them cannot deliver. I don't know for certainty that I've created the intention to purchase. So the key is that the awareness, interest, and desire is not measurable in any medium. Only action measurable. When you give a print ad or you give a TV commercial, you get sales. When you do advertising on digital, you get sales. Both the actions are measurable, but the awareness, interest, and desire is not measurable. So I think the key is that digital at least has a surrogate. So measuring all the surrogates is important. So when you measure digital, you have to measure all the awareness that is being created. Now, awareness happens through page views, time spent on site, video views. If you have interest generated, then you have post generated, prices compared. If you have desire created, then you fill up a lead, request for a callback, and the lastly is you can take action. So you bought the product, you applied for a test drive, you came for a demo of a Bose system. The last thing after that goes is the engagement. Can you cross-sell, upsell? Can you have the user share your product, that he bought the product, can you talk good about your product, etc. So the measuring all this entire life cycle of consumer is possible through digital. However, the only thing that matters is the action in digital, unfortunately. But in conventional media also action is important. But here at least there are surrogates for measuring the other aspects of the buying cycle, but conventional media is not. So the measurement of all these cycles is important. I've covered this a little bit in the past, so I'll tell you why this 65% is important. Because what happens is that in conventional media, only 4% of your money goes to agencies. And there are too many things, two things to be done, right? You create media plan and you create the creatives, and the job is done. You take digital, right? One has to create content for all these hundreds of audiences. You have to create customized creative for these audiences. You have to install analytics and make sure that measurement is happening. You have to optimize this on a day-to-day basis. You have to manage the representation with all the logos that I showed you. You have to manage of educating internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. You've got to manage multiple partners. If you put all these things together and allocate 4% of budget towards all these activities, you will do a pretty shoddy job of all these activities. So the thing is that my goal is very simple. If 100 rupees gives you 100 clicks, and you spend, let's say, 35 rupees of your money in doing all these activities, the 65 rupees will work harder for you. So there is a very clear possibility that 65 rupees will give you more than 100 clicks. So your sort of cost of all these activities gets amortized from the benefit that you get by doing all the activities. But the bigger benefit is that after the user comes to you, thereafter, the time on site, engagements, video views, products sold, engagement, all those things will go up. So not only you will get the same amount of clicks that you would have got otherwise, but you get a lot more benefits thereafter. So I think it's very important that instead of trying to put more monies on media, people should invest more on all these units that I mentioned here to actually make sure that whatever media budget you have is working hard in sort of optimizing the media budget. 65 rupees has to work harder than the 100 rupees of media by doing all these things effectively. So sort of snapshot of this approach is, how do you actually start off? What are the things you do? So what you do is that you first of all identify the target audiences that are propensity to give you the max amount of ROI. You don't know what the audience is going to be, but somebody you know that, okay, if a person wants to buy a real estate of 10 crores, then he has to be a person whose net worth is at least 100 crores. Now, which are the guys, what are the things that they would do? Maybe they play golf. Maybe they buy luxury cars. Maybe they have their children in a Swiss finishing school. So there could be a lot of ways in which you can target that guy who could be worth 100 crores in India. Once you identify such 10, 20 such target audiences, then you can find out ways to reach out to them. So what you do is, when you identify these 20 audiences, then find out what that audience will be searching for. So a person who's into, let's say, a 100 rupee guy, he may be searching for 20 top Swiss finishing schools by name. He could be searching for Swiss finishing schools by itself. He could be searching for summer camps in Florida and searching for that in India. So he wants to send his kid to a summer camp in Florida. Now, a person who's not worth 100 crores may not do that. So once you get these 20 audiences, find out which audiences is giving you maximum ROI. So what you do is, again, create content for that audience. So a content could be, how do you choose the right finishing school for your child? Just one second. Once you identify the audience, then what you see is which audience is giving you best ROI. The audience that gives you the best ROI, that's where you should put most of your money. Digital is about maximizing efficiencies rather than minimizing waste. So let's say you identify 20 audiences, you have a 100 rupee budget, you put 5 rupees to each audience. But the top 3 audiences perform the best. Then what you're going to do is, you're going to put all your monies behind these 3 audiences, because digital is about maximizing efficiency. So if this audience is giving you the best ROI, then the 19th and 20th sort of audience you can afford to ignore. What are the benefits of this approach, right? The first benefit is that you reach out to niche audiences, that's why there is minimum wastage, and you focus on maximizing efficiencies. You create the impression share. So if a real estate guy like Noda or some of these guys sell flats to maybe only 1 million people in India, it's only 1.1% of the population, but only 1 million people have more than 10 lakh rupees of declared income in a year. So the fact of the matter is that even if you create a bigger brand with 1 million people, that's what the goal should be. I don't want to create a brand that 1 billion people know about me. I want to create a brand with people who have the propensity to buy my product or service, and also reduces your clutter. And rather than wasting money across a lot of things, you can focus on things that matter, right? So your relevant creatives also will reduce your media cost for reaching out to these guys. I think it also creates intellectual property. So what it does is that once you create these videos for finishing schools, you keep adding another video, these videos and this content will be useful to you today, and it's going to be useful to you tomorrow. So all the intellectual property that you create will lead to you. Lastly, all these kind of engagements, because they've been done with the right target audience, people who have a propensity to buy your product or service, then it will lead to sales. So branding is not about everybody remembering the ad when it's a very funny ad. At the end of the day, the goal should be to make sales, right? So the thing is, unless you structure your approach towards targeting only the people and build a brand with people who have the propensity to buy a product, it will not lead to sales. So this approach will lead to these following benefits that I've described below. Okay, so this approach requires a lot of effort, right? So if you ask me, the problem with thing is that if I had a 100 crore television budget, if it requires 100 man-hours to spend 100 crores on television, to spend the same 100 crores on digital will require 1,000 man-hours. But the fact of the matter is that if you spend only 100 hours, spend 100 crores on digital also, then you're not going to utilize the medium effectively. You're not going to get the ROI you desire. So the fact of the matter is, although this approach is a lot more complex and requires a lot more man-hours effort than what a conventional approach would require, but in order to get ROI, this is something which is essential to be done. And so many times when I work with partners, I tell them that, listen, the 35% when I'm saying don't put it into media, even allocate money for your internal team, for their training, for them allocating more man hours towards the execution of campaigns. So if your internal team of 2 people could manage a 50 crore television budget, that 2 people team maybe needs to become 10 people team. But the additional 8 people that you are hiring to manage that 100 crores, take that cost out of the media itself. So I'm not saying increase your budget. Take that cost out of the media itself, allocate it so that per se those 8 people will be able to utilize the paid media more effectively. The goal is not to increase paid media. The goal is to make sure that whatever paid media we're allocating, that should be utilized more effectively and gives us better ROI. So I think that covers the basic approach. Any questions you guys have, most welcome to answer the questions. I hope everything's clear, and now
Thanks a lot.
I think I need your help how to get the questions, etc. So I think probably
Sure, what I'll do is that I'll pick and choose a question. In fact, we'll take up all of them. We have sufficient time. So
Sure.
now since I am the one who's right now unmuted, so I have a privilege of asking the first few questions.
Sure.
I think it's a very, very nice presentation and got quite a good insights into the importance of digital and how one should think about and start strategizing, as well as the kind of things to measure. One of the aspects you mentioned was with regards to setting up the DNA, the digital DNA, right? And this is something that one problem that I invariably faced in all the workshops that I've led, the internal selling piece. If they want to go ahead and make sure that they take digital in a big way, there is a digital team which is very inspired to do it, but then the internal selling is always an issue. So what are your tips on how should one address that internal selling, and as a digital partner, when should they be involved, and what kind of steps can be taken in that regard?
So I'll tell you what, I think in the last about 5 years, a lot of things have changed, right? So if I would say, I've met more senior management, promoters of companies, CEOs of companies in the last 1 year than I met in the first 15 years of my life. So the thing is that I think the need has now become acute enough for the senior management, CMOs, or promoters of the companies to be interested in digital. The key is that I think the approach that you have to present to them, the bird's eye view, is very different than learning what AdWords is or SEO is. So I think it's very important to create structured content which is strategic in nature, which a CMO or a promoter of a company who's 55 years old today can understand, because he's not grown up with computers, right? He's not grown up with digital. So it's very, very important to involve them. Your thought process of what you could talk to them about has to be very strategic. So we do a lot of these strategic sessions for board of directors, CMOs at that level. I think the content is very, very critical. So if you get into some kind of technicalities, then they lose interest. So it's important to keep them engaged. Talk about the offline world, how the world is changing, and how digital fitness of the organization is going to be critical for them. And sometimes what happens is that once you get that guy on board and he's sold, then he will do the rest. But getting that guy, I agree with you, it's a tough job. Fortunately for us, we now part of a $45 billion company, so we sort of, I was joking around with somebody that I've had more CMOs coming to my house for dinner in the last 3 months than what I've had in the first 15 years of my life. So the fact of the matter is that once you start engaging at that level, where you're talking to people who have the ability to move the needle, the world is becoming more exciting. But I do agree with you. I think communicating to everybody that unless until you are digitally fit as an organization, you will not be able to leverage digital. And some organizations got it. Like I've heard that Hindustan Lever almost forces every single individual in the company to go sort of a 2.5, 3 months digital course, and that starts with Parajip himself and every single person in the organization. So I'm sure that is going to set a trend where other organizations also feel the need that digital has to become the DNA of the organization.
Got that. So I think Hindustan Lever would be one case which everyone can look at and see what exactly they are doing. So now I'll pick up some of the questions. So I'll start from the questions which are posted on the website, and I'll try to pick up questions which I think have not been answered so far. So a lot of people are actually from different verticals, so they wanted to take up some vertical specific questions. There is a question from Rakesh Jethani. What he's asking is, can you please elaborate on how much importance should a mid-sized IT services company give to building a brand through digital, and what approach should be taken for that? So Any advice for mid-sized IT services company?
Sure. So I tell you, like we've been handling TCS for the last 4 years, right? So TCS obviously takes digital very seriously, and since the last 4 years. Now what happens is that digital allows you to target and maximize efficiencies. So I think what happens is if you're sort of an IT company, right? What is brand building? So brand building, actually brand is a sum of perceptions that a consumer has towards a certain product, service or a company. So what happens is that suppose you are able to create, suppose you are an IT company focusing on, let's say, payroll management in the sort of mid-sector space. Then what happens is find out what are the things that a payroll management sort of a company would require from you. And if you can create content around that, and more people come and consume that content. So let's say, I'll give you an example, right? To a certain extent, we are a mid-size digital marketing company, right? So what we're doing through the webinar, we're trying to build a better brand for iProspect to communicate to, right? So if I say some of the things which are logical and you hear it and it makes sense to you, you're able to use it in your life and improve your digital marketing endeavors, then automatically you have a positive impression towards the brand to communicate to, right? For us, what I think we're looking for, we're looking at a lot of people joining us for talent, right? So the thing is, as in mid-sized IT companies, I'm sure you're fighting for talent. So there is a possibility that brand building or the communication you do through webinars, education will lead to more talent joining you. There are certain companies who per se may put you in the consideration set. So when they're inviting RFPs from 5 companies, because you engage with them in a webinar, you engage with them through a video, you give them some information that would be useful to them, they may put you in the consideration set in the RFP, right? So the goal is not to get a sale. Like, if you take a sales cycle for a TCS, it ranges from 6 months to bare minimum to 1.5 to 2 years at times. So the goal for TCS is not to win the project through digital marketing, but the goal of TCS is to make sure that they get invited for the RFP, they get included in the RFP. So there what happens is webinar has a certain value, a case study has a certain value, the reports they create have a certain value, they create insights, they create videos summarizing certain industries that create value. And all these media and the platforms are used to communicate the brand. Now, if you have a limited budget, start with one thing, start with a webinar on a monthly basis. With limited budget, you can come out with a video case study of payroll management, how Web 2.0 or the cloud-based computing is revolutionizing payroll management. You're not talking about your software, but you're talking about how cloud computing is affecting payroll management. So all these things will lead to brand building, and some of these brand building will lead to engagement, and finally lead to you being included in the RFP. And for me, that's what it is. Brand building has to lead to action. It does not mean that people think about you positively but refuse to work with you. So I think the world of digital is about performance, and brand building must lead to action which is positive towards your product or service. Otherwise, there is no surrogate that brand building will actually happen. Yep.
Got it, great. That was pretty comprehensive view. So another question, there's an interesting question from Priya Parnav. She's saying, can a new FMCG brand be built totally digital? And while saying that, she agrees that she's not one of those early adopters. She is now off Facebook. She never clicks on any ad. So can she expect her customers or prospects to do so?
Yeah. So I think the key out here is that brand building is a comprehensive process, right? So the thing is, if you are a FMCG brand who wants to sell toothpaste, right? I would say that it's going to be difficult building a toothpaste brand purely on digital. But suppose you are a FMCG brand that is going to sell anti-aging cream. Now the thing is, can you build a complete anti-aging cream brand only through digital? Probably yes, because the thing is, all the people on the internet are the ones who have the maximum disposable income. So 150 million people are on the internet, and anybody who can afford to invest a few thousand rupees a month on an anti-aging product, that consumer per se is going to be on digital. So if you want to target those consumers, then digital could be a very effective strategy for you to build a brand around it. But the goal out there is very simple, that the approach has to be different. So what happens is that, let's say, what are the reasons for aging? What are the things that you should do, top 10 tips to make sure that you don't get wrinkles? That could be that sleeping in your stomach is more effective if you don't want to age. You may snore if you sleep on your stomach or in your back, but sleeping in your back is going to help you sort of reduce your wrinkles. So what you do is you create content which will be consumed by the target audience who's 30 plus. So let's say a lot of women will start thinking about aging when they cross the age of 30. So now what happens is if that is the target audience you want to target, then you can use Facebook to target only 30 plus women. You can target all the people 30 plus who use or like some luxury brands like Louis Vuitton or Gucci, etc. You can target 30 plus women who per se have shown interest in something to do with the Swiss finishing school that I gave an example of. So you want to target people who are affluent, who per se anti-aging is going to be something really important to them. So, right, 90% of the population in India, I don't think care about a few wrinkles on their faces, but 5% of the population of India do care about it. That's your target audience. So my question out here is very simple. Do you want to build a brand which, for an anti-aging product, where 1 billion people should know you? Probably not, because they say in advertising, I would like to reach out to every single person in the world. The problem is I don't have enough money. So however money you have, right, you're going to target people who have the sort of propensity to buy your product. So can you build a brand, for an FMCG brand, for anti-aging creams through digital? Of course you can. Can you build it for a toothpaste brand, or if you want to sell a 1 rupee product or a sweet which is sold at 25 paisa? Can you build a brand only using digital? Probably not, because the thing is most of the users are not on digital right now. But in the next few years, 400 million people are going to be on digital. So the fact of the matter is, and the thing is, I think digital sort of if you take digital as a medium, right, it is not a single medium. If you take digital, works like a radio, in certain places plays music. It works like a newspaper where it gives you news. It works like a TV channel, it gives you entertainment. So what happens is, if you take all the conventional mediums, the reason why conventional mediums have been earlier more popular was because the reach of the conventional mediums was more. Now with mobile phones, there are 850 million mobile phone users. There are 150 internet users, going to become 400. So it is one medium that, in a way, I think in a few years' time, you will forget digital as a medium. It will just be a way of life, right? Because if we have unlimited bandwidth at home, and if I watch TV when it comes through satellite and broadcast, or it comes through YouTube, as long as it's playing good HD quality is coming from television channel, you will forget that it's coming from television it's internet, right? It's only that buffering that happens right now that tells us, reminds us that we're watching YouTube and not watching TV. But what if the speed was phenomenal? So today when you're listening to music, at times you're forgetting that you're listening to MP3 and you're not listening to a CD, right? As a consumer, you don't care. The same thing will happen on digital. So I think the thin line between conventional media and digital is going to go away. Digital is going to become a part and parcel of our day-to-day lives, right? It's like electricity. Everything that we use today is powered by electricity, but there is nothing called electrical industry per se, right? Every single person in the organization uses electricity, knows how to switch on the light. So you start using digital as a way, as a part of your life. It will be omnipresent, but you will just not see it, right? The first time you start thinking about electricity per se, otherwise there's no need to think about electricity right now. So that's how digital is going to be, and that's what my belief is, that it's going to be sort of irrelevant, and maybe this whole comparison between conventional media and digital media is going to go away. We're going to just have media, and there will be 30, 40 screens interacting with us, rather than only one television screen or print or a radio interacting with us. Yeah, I'm ready for the next session.
Got it, great. So there are, in fact, a lot of questions. So I'm trying to group all the questions together. People want to know how to do the budget allocation. Like you said a lot about what percentage of digital should go in the paid media, but in terms of the overall marketing budget, at various stages. Now there are people who are asking it for startups. There are people who are asking it for as a mid-sized company for different functionality. So what are the guidelines to decide what percentage of their Marcom budget should actually go in the digital space?
So there's one question that was asked to So there's one question that was asked to a Microsoft guy. So what is the kind of market share that you would want for your product? So the Microsoft guy had replied that, we believe that we would like to get a fair share, and for us, fair share is 100%. So if you ask a digital guy how much budget should go, our total budget to digital, I would say 100%. Right? I think 100% is the fair share. But to take it more seriously, the key is what product you have, what size of the company you are, what kind of product do you think 100% of your target audience is on digital or not. See, the thing is that when you have limited money, what happens is that you're going to focus your money towards customer acquisition. So there are certain mediums like search, we give you maximum value from a ROI, from a acquisition point of view. Some parts of social media advertising like Facebook give you very ROI oriented stuff. So if you have a limited budget, then obviously you're going to use mediums which are going to give you ROI, which you can control, right? So if you have 1 crore budget, doing a print campaign or TV campaign is not going to work for you. You have a 100 rupee budget, then obviously print, television, outdoor, everything should come together and work together, and it's a multiplier of reach. So many times you've seen brands who have used TV have got more sales online. So the key out here is that it depends on the kind of product that you're selling. It depends on how much budget you have. I don't think there is a right answer to this question unless until you drill down deeper into it and find out what is it that you want to sell and what's your measurement of success. So if more people know about your brand, is that a measurement of success? More sales you get, is that a measurement of success? What is your measurement of success? Based on that, you should allocate budgets. But for larger companies, they have a lot of economics models. So let's say Aegis Media has a company that we work with, it's called D2D, data-driven decisions, where what they do is that if they take your past advertising campaigns and they do regression modeling, find out what is the best amount of money from an ROI basis for each medium, and beyond that, if you spend money on that medium, it's going to lead to detrimental returns. So it sort of allows you to have optimum monies for each of the platforms from a purely sales point of view. So if you want to increase your sales, spending more money on digital or more money on radio is going to lead to that after a certain point of time. So where do you stop? So there are a lot of models. For larger companies it's easier to do, but as a smaller company, what you do is that, let's say you have a 100 rupee budget. Why don't you put 5 rupees across 4 mediums, right? Whichever 5 rupees performs the best, that's the medium that you put more money into, right? So your 20 rupees will decide how the rest 80 rupees should be spent, right? So it's very simple. At least a digital bit of it is very easy to test this out. But if you have a 100 rupee budget still in television, then you can't spend it this manner, right? You can't do television, print, outdoor and everything and then decide where to spend the rest of the money. Digital allows you to have flexibility. So what you do is try out one of the conventional mediums, try out one of the digital mediums. Whichever performs better, that's where you allocate more monies, and I think that's the only way to go. So it's firing bullets, calibrating it, hits the target, throw the cannonball. So firing bullet is very important before you allocate budgets. And I think consumers and data will tell you how much money you should put on what medium, purely based on performance. Yeah, I'm done.
Got that. And I think as you stated earlier as well, it's you start with the campus and then you do not start with the end-to-end strategy. So then the kind of returns you'll get would help you to decide how much to budget. So I'm actually tempted to ask one question before I take up further questions. I mean, you have interacted with a lot of organizations. Is there any company you have ever said, no, digital is not for you?
So the thing is that we have told thousands of companies that we are not the right company for you. But it's never said that digital is not for you. So what happens is, unfortunately, the team we've built can only service large enterprises, right? So I spent 16 years in digital, Ben has spent 13 years in digital, 3 years in India, 10 years in the UK, Ronnie has managed 20 million pounds of campaigns per month. So the entire team that we built is built for large enterprises. So if you're not an organization who's probably going to invest about 30-40 lakhs a year as our fees, we would probably not be able to work with you. But the thing is that I think it's very simple that digital is like an advertising medium, right? So as an advertising medium, as a customer acquisition medium, it's the best thing that has happened to SMBs, right? If you think about it, like 90% of Google's revenue comes from SMBs. So the smallest organization in the world who spends $10 a day can afford to use digital. So I don't think today the question is whether digital is not meant for certain organizations. Now the key is that some platforms of digital are not meant for you as an industry. You use a platform to the strength. So let's take an example, right? I've had companies who want to use Twitter for acquiring customers or selling their products. Now that's a dumb decision, right? Twitter is a very effective information dissemination tool. And then I have some company who come and tell me, but Dell sells, $50 million of products to Twitter. And I say, okay, you know what? You take your sales to $260 billion and I'll sell you $26 million of your products to Twitter. The fact of the matter is that Dell sells $1 billion or $20 billion, $100 billion through search. It sells $26 million to Twitter. Twitter's strength is not customer acquisition. It should not be used such as that. So the key is that every single digital platform is not for every single company. The business objective should be clear. As long as business objective is clear, I think some part of digital It could be mobile, it could be search, it could be social media, it could be social media listening, it could be Facebook. All these mediums will deliver a specific ROI to a certain business objective you have. But I don't think there is any organization who can say that, okay, digital cannot benefit me. Because I think we are living in a digital age, we don't have a choice. I think we are living in an age where digital has become sort of a catalyst and a part of every single organization, whether we believe it or not. It's like saying that uh, uh, certain type of industries will never use internet. I think it's going to be similarly 5 years down the line. We're going to say that if I tell you today that some industries and some companies don't need electricity, right? You laugh at me, right? In the same way, 5 years down the line, if somebody says that some industries don't need internet, the same laughter is going to be shown to them, right? It's going to become part of our lives. I feel today kids, right? So, it happened with my daughter a few years back. She said my computers are not working. So I said, what happened? So I took a computer and I started the Excel sheet. So that's my way of testing the computer not working. She said, no, I'll show you. She typed in Barbie.com and Barbie.com didn't work. She told me, see, the computer is not working. So for her, the computer is not connected to the internet. It means computer is not working, right? You and I, of slightly traditional gray hair kind, believe that the internet is not working, computer is working, right? But for her, he doesn't have the concept of that computer can work without the internet. For her, if the internet is not connected, computer is not working. So it just cut through the ice, and I feel like, wow, that's how consumers tomorrow are going to think, that if a device is not connected to the internet, that means the device is not working.
Got it. From booting sound to Barbie.com, we've come a long way. Here is a little difficult question, Vivek. There's a guy, Sandeep. Just a bit, my question screen is not open. Yeah, Sandeep Khurana. What he's saying is, can you suggest digital to leverage for B2B2C businesses like paints? Remember that there are painters and contractors, and still hold a great sway that the customer are in online, knows about this category.
Sure, I can call a lot of ideas. So let's say if you take paints as a category, right? So now what happens is, which are the influencers who per se influence buying a paint, and who are the consumers who buy it, right? So if you take Asian Paints has done a lot of things by which they can reach out to consumers. But what if you come out with, let's say, architects, right? Architects, interior decorators, theoretically speaking, let's say they can influence, selling of paint. So what if you could create content for architects? Now, content for architects would be very simple. I've worked with a lot of interior decorators, architects, and they have these CAD/CAM drawings. And when I tell them to send it to me in email, if I don't have CAD/CAM software, I can't even see what they send me, right? What if you could have a CAD/CAM drawing JPG converter? It converts a CAD/CAM drawing into a JPEG, and that JPEG can be then put on a site where I can come and see it. What if I could then come and give comments on that site? So every single architect would have a username and password. He would pass on that username and password to his people who per se are his clients. And whenever he has to present the CAD/CAM drawing, he can actually just use the CAD/CAM converter given by Asian Paints, and all this could happen on Asian Paints portal. What is the benefit that Asian Paints will get out of it, right? All these architects will be sort of grateful that Asian Paints have given them a platform by which they can communicate with their consumers, which could be clients. The clients see an image, they say, this sofa is fine, this material is fine, but you know what? I don't like this thing as a handrest. I would prefer this handrest to be changed. And the consumer could actually draw something and give their feedback back to the architect, which he could see himself. So a lot of times we don't meet the architect, the meeting could be prevented, and this could be done on the web. Now this whole platform could be owned by Asian Paints, and even architects who are not recommending Asian Paint products could probably start, seeing what are the new products they've come up with, right? There could be so many other things that can be done. There could be space provided to the architects where they can store large files. They can be given mobile apps that will allow them to share the new things they've seen worldwide. If there are 25 different designs of something of furniture has come up, this app will allow them to see those designs on a day-to-day basis, so they can actually get inspired. And you copy from one is plagiarism, when you copy from the is research. So these guys would get data which they can actually become better designers. Similarly, the key is that whatever audience you engage with, it's important to create content for them. So if they see value in that content, they start consuming the content, you will have all the time in the world to communicate with them. The same thing, somebody's gone down and saying, okay, what are the things that careers need? What are the things that plumber needs? What are the things that electrician needs? What can we do? Can we build a mobile microsite which works on feature phones that will help the electrical guy in a certain manner? Of course, yes, right? You can think out all the 20 things that he needs. He can see from his phone, which will help him, because if there are 250 odd smartphones, million smartphones right now, it's going to become 300, 400 million smartphones, then almost every single person who earns any kind of money will have a phone, which is a smartphone, right? So electricians, careers, all these guys, contractors, we can create content, software, applications for all these guys, which will all be on a platform which is owned by a company like Asian Paints, and then every single person who communicates that platform can be given consumption, communication of the products and services they have, and help them serve, right? So let's say I always feel that many times when I'm suggested a certain paint, uh, if I go to a shop that has been recommended by my painter, then he'll have a commission with that shop. What if there was a way in which I could have a mobile app which is meant for consumers, which gives the rate that I'm going to be charged at different shops, regardless of who I go with. If I go alone or I go with somebody, I'm going to get the same rate. So at the end of the day, those kind of apps could be very useful to consumers. It doesn't, and it takes the sort of the middleman out of this whole picture. So the key is that digital can be useful to almost everybody. The key is to find out who's your teachee, what can you do for them, can you create content which they would love to consume, and can you create content which will be of value to them. If you can create content which will be of value to them, either they are direct consumers or sort of indirect customers in this case, once you create the right content, then you always find out ways in which you can use it to get better ROI from this. Does that answer the question to a certain extent?
I hope so. Sandeep, does that answer it for you? Please let us know. By the way, a lot of you are actually asking domain-specific strategy from NGO to spa, massage. I think Vivek has very beautifully captured the whole framework that you can use for any industry. So I think if you really revisit the whole presentation, this presentation will be shared with all of you, and we are recording this session. We'll email you the details of where the recording, you can access the recording as well. So if you actually go through all of it, you would get the whole framework for possibly any strategy that you are part of.
Actually, the reason, I do all these webinars, we speak at AdTech and conferences, we do a whole masterclass workshop at the AdTech is because for us the challenge is that with sort of mid-sized firms, we're not able to provide our services. They're not able to afford us. So the thing is that sessions like this are very good starting points for you to map out a digital strategy, because you get a bird's eye view of how should you approach digital. It's not about like learning how AdWords works, right? It's about getting strategic thinking of how digital must be approached. And what you said was absolutely right, that the way you look at it, this is that how do we use digital to get a framework that if you want whether the strategy for a specific product or service, whichever provider you are, if you use the same framework, it will be relevant to your industry, and you're going to create something that will give you better ROI than what you're doing currently.
Got it. Thanks a lot, Vivek, for a very nice and interactive session.